start when Thelma is back here. We'll get rolling.
Me suele pasar esto. No es la primera vez que mi ropa ordenada. Estás bien checado.
Está bien, está en el vacío.
No, de hecho está bien porque así podemos ver la pantalla.
Hello, everybody, and thanks so much for coming. I'm Sarah Toomey. I'm the Student Affairs Administrator at the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture. And I wanted to explain just a little bit about this program, CRES Talks, the general program, and introduce Thelma Jimenez-Anglada. The program in Comparative Race and Ethnic Studies and the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture have for a year now presented a speaker series designed to bring to campus scholars and writers whose work is currently being taught at UChicago. This series invites current CRES majors and minors, interested students in general, and members of the general public to join us for in-depth conversations that bring topics discussed within the confines of the classroom into an open forum. Today we have a special CRES talk. This quarter, Thelma Jimenez-Anglada included works by journalist Óscar Martínez and photojournalist Edu Ponces in the syllabus for her class, Reading the Border, Gender, Text, and Performance. Further, their work has been showcased here at the center in the exhibition On the Trail, Homeless Dreams, a photographic exhibition, which you see all around you and which will be up in this room until the end of the quarter. Ms. Jimenez-Anglada is a graduate student in Spanish whose research areas include Latin American cultures and literatures. She will graduate with her doctorate after defending this summer and begin an assistant professorship at Lawrence University this coming fall. Please welcome Thelma Jimenez-Anglada.
Well, I would like to thank everybody for coming, to welcome all of you, faculty, colleagues, and members of the community, and especially students for joining us, to Riding the Beast Across Mexico to the U.S. Border, part of the CRES Talk series that will give us the opportunity to discuss fieldwork and photojournalism with Edu Ponces and Óscar Martínez. Riding the Beast Across Mexico to the U.S. Border is also part of a wider series of interdisciplinary events that explore the notion of Central American migration and violence. The series include a photographic exhibition on display here, as Sarah mentioned, at the CSRPC through June 10th. Today's conversation and tomorrow's discussion as well during the workshop for Latin America and the Caribbean at 6 p.m., which will take place at the Seminary Co-op, where we will discuss Óscar Martínez's new book, A History of Violence, and Edu Ponces' photographic work in Central America. As most of you know, none of this would have been possible without the generous support of different departments, centers, and organizations from our academic community. But I would like to take a moment to especially thank the kindness and generosity of Dara Epison, who's over there, just being the man handling the camera, or woman handling the camera, thank you. And Sarah Tui, as well as Joshua Baker, which is on the other side of the room, and especially a mi fiel amigo y confidente, Jorge Lefebvre Tavares. For that reason, I would like to take a moment to also thank all of our co-sponsors. There's a long list, so bear with me for a moment. Those include the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture, the Workshop on Latin America and the Caribbean, the Franke Institute for the Humanities, the Spanish Graduate Student Committee, Global Studies, Center for Latin American Studies, Harris School of Public Policy, Center for Identity and Inclusion, the Grad Council, Division of the Humanities, Posen Family Center for Human Rights, the Center for the Study of Gender and Sexuality, Committee on International Relations, Department of History, Department of Romance Languages and Literatures, CAT Center for Mexican Studies, and the Institute of Politics. I told you it will be late. I would like to express my gratitude as well to Viviana Hong for moderating tonight's conversation. Viviana is a Romance Languages and Literatures PhD candidate whose work focuses on the representation of children in Argentina during the war, and who is a recipient of the Charlotte Newcomb Doctoral Dissertation Fellowship. As well as our colleague Juan Diego Mariatti, who would be helping us with translation as needed. Finally, I am happy to thank Edu Ponces and Óscar Martínez for joining us tonight. Edu Ponces is a co-founder of Rio Photo, a Barcelona-based photographic agency that currently has projects in more than 15 countries. The reports and productions created by the agency over the last several years have received prizes in the spheres of cinema and photography, journalistic investigation, and the promotion of human rights. Ponce's own photographic work in El Camino has earned him accolades such as Best Photography Book of Latin America in 2010, the Revela International Prize, and the National Journalism and Human Rights Award of El Salvador, among others. Óscar Martínez, whose prolific career as a journalist includes directing the Salvadoran investigative journalism project Sala Negra, is also one of the central masterminds of what is perhaps the most celebrated online news outlet in Latin America, elfaro.net. For the past decade, Martínez has been reporting extensively on the northern triangle of Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, and exposing the systemic causes of the violence in the region. The Beast, his first book in English, was named one of the best books of 2013 by Mother Jones and the Financial Times, and it was awarded the 2014 Washington Office on Latin America Duke Human Rights Award. His most recent book, A History of Violence, has just been published by Verso Books, and as I told you before, we will be discussing that book tomorrow. Please join me in giving our guests a warm welcome.
Thank you again for coming, and thank you Edu and Óscar for being with us this week to share these very important stories and your insights on the migrant trails in Central America, which you've been investigating, reporting, and documenting for many years now. So there's a lot to talk about, but I think to begin, perhaps it would be useful if you shared what were the beginnings of this collaborative work between El Faro and Rio Photo. Like, what circumstances allowed you to go there to begin your work and to stay there for an extended period of time?
Yeah, of course. Okay. We ought to say two things to beginning, and the first is thank you for all that. Thank you to Telma for all the work. It's a pleasure to be here. Second thing is that Edu and I cannot speak English very well. So, but we decided that we're gonna try to speak in Spanglish because it's very boring to hear one. The non-simultaneous translation is very boring. I think that you prefer to hear us in Spanglish. So you're gonna hear that we're gonna speak in English and we're gonna say a lot of things in Spanish. So we're gonna need your help. Okay. We start with that project in 2007. We never thought that we're gonna end it with two books of photography and text. We start to try to see a situation in Mexico change in 2007. Why we worked together? Edu was, before the project, Edu was the chief of photography of El Faro. The first chief photographer of El Faro was Edu. Vos creaste la sección de fotografía. Edu created the section of photography. But when we start to see Mexico changed a lot in 2007. It changed because one reason. I'm going to talk about the reason in a few minutes. But at the beginning, we thought that we gonna talk about the situation of the travel on the top of the train, we thought that we're gonna talk about the situation of Hungary and the weather across Mexico. You have to know that it's a travel, approximately a migrant spent 30 days on the road, and they take 8 trains to get to the north frontier between Mexico and the United States. So we thought that we're going to speak about the normal condition of a tough, a very rough journey. But in 2007, Los Zetas, the more brutal crime organization band that I meet in my career, leave the cartel of El Golfo, separate from the cartel. They used to be the army, like the military force of a cartel. So they separate and they start to create new crimes in the areas of controls that they had. And they start to create the massification of the crimes with migrants starting 2007. So the idea changed in 2007 because we thought that we're going to talk a difficult journey, but we start to talk about organized crime and massive kidnaps and all, I don't know how to say that in English, sorry, but todo un sistema de trata de mujeres para explotación sexual comercial.
This whole network of sexual slavery and exploitation for women.
Mainly in the route under control of Los Zetas. I'm talking about the Atlantic coast of Mexico. So, since the beginning, we saw a change on the route. I mean, we saw another kind of problems for the migrants. We're talking about hundreds of migrants kidnapped in every month in Mexico, in places like that, places that anybody talk about, places like Coatzacoalcos, La Chepas, El 20, El Barí, El Águila, everybody talk about Tijuana or Ciudad Juárez. I think that el imaginario de la migración está descolocado.
I think the imaginary of immigration is a little off-kilter or off-center.
But it was very curious because at the same time that we saw that the problem changed for migrants, the coverage of media are the same thing. They talk about the same issues. And when you saw a press conference in the National Institute of Migration in Mexico, you saw a lot of journalists there, with all their cameras and their notebooks. But when you went to the rails, you don't see journalists in that moment. So what happened? We understood in that moment that the migration process of the Central American people, why I say Central American, because the 98% of the people who cross Mexico without a coyote or without a good coyote are from that 4 countries, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Honduras. In Guatemala. So we start to see that a humanitarian crisis was told from dispatches, from governmental dispatches, and from official reports of press. So that's the reason because we start to talk about migration under that methodology. That I don't know, Edu, you can explain a little bit about that.
I also think that, first of all, I want to join Óscar with the apologize of my English, sorry. But now, 5 years after or 6 years after, I think we had a great idea at the beginning of the project when we decided we are not going to do breaking news. Breaking news was prohibited. When we decided to work on that issue, we said, okay, if something very important happens in Mexico about migration, and very important in that moment in the Mexico newspaper coverage was like hundreds of migrants arrested in I don't know, Ixtepec, for example. We said, okay, when we see that, we are not going there. We decided that. We are going because we wanted to show the whole picture. I wanted to understand the whole picture. And for that, in that moment, we thought breaking news is a bad way to know what's going on here. And we had a good example in that time in Mexico when you was reading a newspaper, you saw like 100 or 200 people arrested today. But in a year, they arrested 200,000 migrants every year. Then that's not news. But you need to understand what's going on. And we decided to do that. And for me, it was the best idea for the project, because we could go to understand things and not to cover crisis. And at the end, that allowed us to understand the big crisis, the humanitarian crisis. And I think we did that with the text, with the writing journalists, and we did that with photography. We decided that too. We said, okay, what do we want to show on that story? Maybe we don't want to show the people arrested one day, but we want to show more important things to understand that. For example, what are the faces of the people traveling? Not the numbers, but the faces. Or the real stories. Why are they coming? We could explain that because we decided not to do breaking news.
You know that the journalist used to be like tourists in a lot of phenomena, in a lot of complex phenomena. Journalists used to behave like tourists sometimes, and they go to a place when something extraordinary happens, like a massacre of 72 migrants, like happened in Mexico in August of 2010. But after that, they leave the place. And they leave the place without understanding anything. Without can explain why that happened. Who do that? Why they do that? So journalism, and we try to fight against that, not just with that project, but with El Faro and Ruido Foto. Try to behave with a different method of approximation. Because, for example, I think that I don't know if you know, but in 2010 occurred a massacre of 72 migrants in the north of Mexico, in the state of Tamaulipas, in a little town called San Fernando. I know that was a shocking moment in the migration story, but that happened all the time. Not 72 maybe, you can see the bloody worm in an abandoned house all the time, but it's happened all the time. It's happened since 2007. And why? Because the geography of the migrants in Mexico, it's the best geography to not see. Migrants are invisible. Why? There's a lot of reasons. They never cross into the main cities. They cross into little towns in the outside of the main cities. They travel in the top of trains. They don't vote. They don't denounce, because if you know the authorities in Mexico, you're never gonna think and denounce anything. Mostly in a little town, you're never gonna go to the municipal police and put a denounce. So I think that we understood that from the first material, the kidnap who doesn't matter, that we worked in the first, I think that January of 2008. And we opened a door from that topic, and we discovered a very complex topic. You have coyotes, you have juntadores, you have bajadores del desierto, you have burreros, migrants from several countries, you have like 7 different police corps in Mexico, you have a lot of to understand. You cannot behave like a pizza guy who make the pizza in half hour and deliver hot. It's impossible. You cannot explain anything with that kind of journalism. It's impossible. At least explain that kind of topic with that kind of journalism. It's impossible.
Yes, and the violence that you describe in your book is like so pervasive, and it's become this whole culture, and it's so complex. And unless you spend a lot of time there, because it's also hard to penetrate and really understand what is causing this, and unless you spend a lot of time there, you can't understand it. And my next question is how you were able to get the interviews from people, because from my understanding, they're always being monitored by the narcos, right? So you were identified as journalists. So if someone was talking to you, that implied some sort of risk or danger for them.
Okay, my answer is I don't know. I don't have like a magic answer about that, but I have an evident technique, and it's a human condition. You're never gonna talk. You're never gonna spell your secrets to somebody who don't know anything about you. I would recommend, for example, Edu and I saw a lot of journalists who don't know anything about the journey, who sit down with a coyote to speak, and maybe they don't know that the guy is a coyote. So they don't know what to ask, they don't know about the name of the towns, and you cannot talk with a coyote anything interesting if you don't know anything about the journey, about the road. I think that one condition is you have to show interest on the people. I mean, sometimes we spend 1 week on a shelter before travel on a train. What we do all that week, we don't was asking question all the time. I mean, anybody can support the guy to make question for 1 entire week. They can kill us.
We play football.
We play football, we play cards, that's part of the job. Behavior, if you're talking with people, not with animals that you're going to observe like for 1 week. You're talking with people, with person, what the person do. The people talk in different spaces. But second, you have to know some things. You have to know about what are you talking about. I mean, because if you show respect and interest, people are gonna tell the stories. People are gonna not just tell the story, but be part of their journeys. I think that was a better goal than just hear stories. Some people let us be part of the worst journey of their lives. And I think that's, I mean, I have to show respect for that people who let me get into their lives in that exact moment. And I can show you that you don't want to talk with nobody in some moments of the journey. You want to be alone, because when you're afraid, you want to run. Be afraid is not a strategy. Be afraid is just be afraid.
I think that's very clear when you have a camera, because you have to break always in all the situations, especially this kind of situation. You have to break something first. And the people, I think they need to understand why are you taking pictures, or why are you asking some kind of questions. And when you are there sleeping with them in the shelters, or traveling on the train with them, maybe not in the same situation, but I think that's not necessary. You don't have to be one of them. You don't have to. In my case, I don't look like a regular Central American migrant, but you have to be a part of the group with your special condition as a journalist. But when you are with them, sleeping there, or playing football, or talking about the same things, I think the thing that Óscar said, when you talk everybody wants to tell their story. That's general, I don't know, that's the gift, the main gift for a journalist. Even the people who get, que se pone en peligro por contar su historia.
Yeah, the people who put themselves in danger just by telling their story.
Even that people, everybody wants to explain their motives, but you need to be something to them, somebody to them. No? And we felt that during the project a lot of times when you travel with them, when you sleep there, everything changes, and then you are taking pictures and you're like a member of the group. There's a guy there that always explains jokes, or there's a guy there that it's very, I don't know, shy, and this guy here takes pictures, and this guy here asks questions. No? It's as easy as that, but it's not so easy because you have to, you need the most valuable thing for a journalist, and I think that we don't have most of the time, that is time. You need time.
In fact, a lot of time happened. You remember that a lot of migrants get close to us and say, "You have to tell my story, because I have a great and very awful story." And I think that the stories that we heard talk a lot about what people think that journalists want, because they say like, "Hey, a lot of people in my family was killed. You want to hear my story?" It's like, okay, I don't need so much blood to tell a story. I understand that you think that that's what I want. But in fact, I think that one of the reasons to leave Mexico, there was some threats at the end, but one of the reasons to leave Mexico is that we thought that we end the work, but I don't know how to say that, but nosotros teníamos una mirada muy cansada, ya era muy difícil escuchar una historia que nos sorprendiera.
We had like a very tired gaze or very look about us because it was just difficult to keep hearing kind of the same story.
So, ya no sé cómo decir esto, ya no podíamos ser sorprendidos más en algún momento, y eso es un gran problema para un periodista.
At some point we kind of became habituated to these stories and we felt like we couldn't be surprised by them anymore, and that was kind of a big problem for a journalist.
See, I mean, you were putting yourselves in danger as well, so they saw that and opened up with you for that reason as well. So you spent a lot of time in these shelters that you can find along the way. There are very few. They're migrant shelters, and they're precarious, but migrants do get to rest, eat, bathe, and we get some sort of medical care sometimes. And they're usually run by these religious figures, like two of them, Father Alejandro Solalinde from Ixtepec, and Father Prisciliano Peraza in Altar. They run these shelters, but I was curious to know how they are able to keep these zones safe, because I know you mentioned that they receive threats very often, and yet they seem to be somewhat, not protected, but they are spared some of the violence because they're exempted from paying some taxes to the narcos, and even though they're very active and they move around somewhat freely, they're still alive. So how do they run these shelters? Can they protect some people?
That's a good question. And it's very, I cannot, I don't have the answer to, but right now I'm sure that the work of the international recognition of that people who own that shelters are very important. I think that the international community give a lot of protection to guys like Alejandro Solalinde or Pedro Pantoja in Saltillo. But at that moment, I don't know. At the first time when I meet Alejandro Solalinde is the founder of one of the most important shelters in the south of Mexico. It's in Oaxaca, like I don't know, like 6,000 kilometers, no, 600 kilometers from the frontier with Guatemala. I don't know how to say that in miles. 600 kilometers.
600 kilometers.
600, no, I mean in miles.
Oh, in miles, sorry.
But I understand that you're not in the mathematic faculty, so move on. I don't see a quickly answer that you tell. So, but at that moment when I meet Alejandro Solalinde, he wasn't a shelter. He just was his car, and he moved around the rails, calling migrants to give some food. That's all. He and his car. He can be shot any day, and the environment was very violent and very. It wasn't good for him. Why? For example, because the police, the local police, was involved with the kidnaps in Ixtepec, Oaxaca, in that municipality. So anybody can shoot Alejandro Solalinde. I don't know. Yo soy ateo.
I'm an atheist.
But I'm gonna give you the answer that he gave. This because he believes in God. That's his answer, and I don't know. And I don't have another answer because in 2007 Alejandro Solalinde wasn't a figure, a national figure. He was not a national figure. Anybody knows about him, not just a few people who want to understand the migrant phenomenon, but anybody know about Alejandro Solalinde. Los Zetas could kill him. In fact, they tried to burn him one time. There was gasoline in the whole body. But they decided to not throw the cerillo. I don't know why.
The match.
The match. They decided to not throw the match. I don't know why. But they decided to not throw the match. And if I try to think like a criminal, I think that I throw the match. Because if you're not gonna throw the match, why you put gasoline on the guy? So I love Alejandro Solalinde, so Alexander, it's like the English compression. But, and I'm gonna give you his answer. He think and he work on that, under that condition because he think that God protect him. I don't know, I don't have an answer, a better answer.
Yeah, but he decided to do something very smart also, I think, because he decided to not, most of the people in these areas, in these towns, they decide to shut up, to don't say nothing about because you're in danger. No? They decide to fear the narcos or the kidnappers, and Alejandro Solalinde decided to do the other thing, no? To gritar mucho,
To shout it out or to really speak, yeah.
and to be brave. And now when you see what happened with him and with all the situation, maybe I think that a good lesson is the guy that decided to do that now is the most protected guy, because now he is important. He's a voice of all the migrants. And there's a lot of people that in the government, a lot of powerful people in Mexico that they don't like Alejandro Solalinde or Pedro Pantoja or this kind of guys. But now they are in the public eye, no?
Yes.
Yes, correct. And now they have to protect them because a lot of people is looking to this spot. And maybe, I'm not sure that Alejandro Solalinde thought about that at the beginning. That's my strategy. I'm gonna be always shouting everywhere on the news or on my radio program, no? Because that's a good way to protect my work. No, I think it was, he's brave. He's a very brave man. But when you see that, you think, okay, maybe being brave is a way to protect yourself and to protect your work and to protect migrants. No? And I think that's a good lesson of this kind of people. But I don't have your answer. I don't know why they are alive.
He does a lot of noise and that's very heroic because, for example, I'm gonna put you an example of how the organized crime substitute the state in some places in Mexico, the power of the state. For example, in a place called Tenosique, it's the other mainly way from migrants. Tenosique is very close to the frontier, to the border with Guatemala. In Tenosique, los Zetas sent one capo, one leader of the organization who called Mateo, el comandante Mateo. They sent Mateo to control that place in Mexico. It's called the river region because you have 3 rivers in that part of Mexico. It's not just a municipality, it's a group of municipalities, but it's not a state. It's like a region. So Mateo went there, and one night he decided to go to the local police with 2 prostitutes and said, open that jail. And the officer, they went alone. The officer opened the jail, he went into the jail, and he made a party all night inside. And he said, tomorrow morning you're gonna open the jail, and I'm gonna go out. That's what Mateo does to show the power, to say, okay, right now we're gonna control the town. That was his first decision in Tenosique, to show to the authorities that the power is gonna be substituted for los Zetas. So, what Alejandro Solarin did under that condition, condition where you cannot going to ask for help to the authorities. What authorities? I mean, the authorities and the organized crime in Mexico is a very similar thing.
Yeah, well, you go in depth on this in the books, and you kind of get a sense of this looking at the images as well. But one of the things that sustains this very extreme form of violence is that it's become so normalized. It's just assumed you're going to be raped, assaulted, attacked. You know, there's all these rings, and it's a very complex situation. But if you could pinpoint like some factors very specific on what led to that normalization of the violence, would you identify like the main?
Me estás preguntando por hechos que demuestren esa normalización.
O factores que explicarían cómo se normalizó esta violencia, no como simplemente decir que
Okay, I think that and I can put some examples, but I start saying that the reason because migrants the reason because exists that normalization of violence is because mostly of migrants come from Central America, from the north of Central America. We're going to talk much more tomorrow about that, but we can discuss that too if you want. But north of Central America are societies who only know the war. We don't know peace. We never live in peace. I don't know how to live in peace. I don't know how to live in peace. I don't know. And of course I'm a privileged guy in my society. So asks to a guy from the most violent communities in El Salvador how to live in peace, he don't know anything about peace. We don't know how to run that. We know how to run violence. And we know how to behave on that environment. So violence is not strange in our house. Violence is our house. So we know about that.
And also I think that in Mexico, with these people, you have the perfect victims. They are from Central America, they are not going to the authorities because they are huyendo, ¿cómo es? Fleeing the authority. And they look the same, and then sometimes you can say if a guy or a group of guys are from Mexico or from Central America. No, they are nobody in Mexico, in the journey through Mexico, and then and they are not protected by the Mexican government in any way. And then when you have this kind of people, you can do to them everything you want. No? I think a good example is La Rosera, which is actually this picture that's taken there. This is the part between the Guatemala-Mexico border to the first point where you take the train to go, because this part, the train in this part disappeared with a hurricane in 2001.
2005.
And this part, the migrants have to walk. Sometimes they take buses, but they have to walk a lot.
They follow the trails.
The old trails.
In the middle of that,
Yeah.
the old trails.
In this part, there were groups of, not like Los Tetas, little group of violent people that always, when they find these groups, they assaulted them. They took them all the money, because it is at the beginning of the journey. And a lot of times they violate the woman and sometimes the man, you know, but most of the time the woman. And why? Because they can do that. Because nothing is going to happen. Nobody will go to the police, nobody will come to change that the next day. They are so vulnerable that the violence it's possible, and ¿cómo se llama? Impunidad, ¿no?
Impunity.
The impunity, for me, it's a very important reason to understand why so many violence to this group.
Yeah, because the impunity makes you take some decisions. If you grow up in a place with less impunity, you understand that you can denounce some things and something's gonna happen. The lesson where the people come from, it's you can denounce, but anything gonna happen. So you're gonna take decisions with that in your mind. So for example, what coyotes start to do since like 2008, start to give condom to the girls who are gonna cross the La Rosera and say, okay, allow it. It's gonna happen. Used to it. They're gonna rape you. If you resist to the rape, they're gonna kill us. So what do you prefer?
That's normalization of violence.
So and they I think that happened already, but at that time that very normal. All the girls say that they give me condom because they say that they're gonna rape me, and they recommend me that establish a negotiation with the rapist to say please use the condom and rape me because it's something that's gonna happen. So yes, the normalization of the violence. But for example, I'm gonna put just one little example in numbers of what happened in El Salvador. In El Salvador, we are the most murdered country in the world. We have a rate of 103 homicide per 103 homicidios por cada 100,000 habitantes.
We have a murder rate of about 103 homicides per 1,000 inhabitants.
The rate in the United States is 4. If the rate, the Salvadorian rate flowed like I don't know, like some virus and come to United States, van a morir 330,000 estadounidenses asesinados. O sea, 330,000, I don't know how to say that.
335.
But in the most murderous country of the world, just 1 of every 10 homicides go to trial. Just 1 of every 10 murder committed in El Salvador go to trial. I mean, it's not resolved. Just 1 homicide have possibilities of being resolved. So what? You have a lot of people who live all their lives under the impunity. And the impunity, like the air, is part of your system. You understand that things can resolve by that way. So women accept the condom.
Edu, in a conference that you gave last year, I believe it was in the Basque Country, you said this comment in passing that I found it really interesting. So once you had the stories and the photographs, you came back and you wrote the reports, you published first through a photographic, which is an online newspaper, but you said something that it's important to bring it back to the local, to the home countries, right? So to tell the stories of these migrants that are escaping, and to tell their stories, you know, what they're going through back in their home countries. You said something along the lines of that, and so after you publish through Enfado.net, then you would, I guess they would get republished in international media outlets. Is there a reason why you felt that was important to tell the stories at home first?
Well, actually, this is our origin. Óscar is from El Salvador, and I'm adopted in El Salvador. I'm a Salvadorian journalist because I started as a journalist there. And when we decided to talk about that, to discover, to work on that issue, our motivations were the motivations of an origin country. When you see all the people fleeing the country, and you see the consequences there at first, because you talk to a lot of people and they say, okay, my son was gone 3 months ago and I don't know where he is, and you can see a lot of kids without a father or without a mother, and sometimes you see the best people of the country going away, because it's the people who want to do something, who are brave, who have dreams. This is the people that migrates. And then when we started with that, and then for us the thing was to explain that in the origin country. And first of all, we published that in El Faro, and also we did some things with that idea. For example, at the beginning of the project, we had an agreement with local radios, and we, translated the stories to the radio language for these local radios in El Salvador. That this is important because some people in las zonas periféricas, in
the peripheral zones.
Yeah, they don't look on the internet, elfaro.net. No?
They don't have internet.
They don't, or maybe they don't have internet, but they hear the radio. No? And we did some exhibitions with a museum in El Salvador. They took the pictures, and they make an exhibition like a itinerant, itinerant exhibition through some of these places. No, we tried to do that, and after that, maybe, or during that part, then we felt that we need to say that not just in El Salvador or not just in Honduras, because it's very important to denounce Mexico of the lack of protection of the human rights happening in Mexico, and also it's very important to come to the United States and explain to people this is what's going on there, and you are part of this problem. No, it's not a problem of Mexico, but the original feeling for us, what we need to explain to the people that is from El Salvador or Honduras or Guatemala, if you are going to do that journey, you need to know what's going on there, because there was a lot of people there thinking, maybe not it's the same now, but a lot of people thinking, okay, that's like Óscar said, a rough trip, but it's okay. No, a lot of people did, and we thought, okay, we need to tell to them that's a humanitarian crisis. You're gonna die. Maybe you're gonna die. No? Think about it. And that was the reason, because our main public is the Central American. That was your question, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So the piece, the original Spanish was published in 2010 under the title Los Migrantes que no importan. That same year, the photographic book En el Camino was published, and they were both published in Europe, in Barcelona. What's been the reception like at home? either through the reports through El Faro or the book itself? What's the reception?
Well, you have to know that in El Salvador, for example, 2 years ago, we was like the best-seller book with a book who called Crónicas Negras. We sell 380 books. So El Salvador is not a country who buy a lot of books. We don't have a lot of libraries. Maybe if you write a superation book with all that silly things, you can sell a lot of books, but not that kind of books. So the books have just the normal movement that we expect. The internet in El Salvador, just the 21% of the population have internet. So we publish all the chronicles in internet. We edit the chronicles and add some chronicles to make the book in 2009. But you can find some chronicles on the internet. But about the topic, about the information, so we don't have a massive public on that topic. But that's a very weird thing. The government in El Salvador, the governments in Guatemala, the governments in Honduras are not talking about that. The figure of the migrant it's like a television like this one, or like money sent by all that. ¿Cómo se llaman estas casas? Por ejemplo, Money Graham, or I don't know, that kind of, how it's called, that kind of business. Money Graham, or, pero ¿cómo se llaman? Casas de envío.
Remittances. Remittances? Remesas en español.
Remesas, but the migrant have to transform in success, and the success is money, and the success is a t-shirt of Los Angeles Lakers, the success is a television. The migrant cannot be a white woman. The migrant cannot be a kidnapped man in Los Zetas houses. You have to be success. You have that, the figure that the Central American government transmit to the people. I mean, we have like a big monument who call brother, hermano lejano, welcome home. But we don't have a monument who said, okay, rape a woman, welcome home. We're gonna care for you. We don't have a project that to hear and a systematization of the stories of all the people that come back as deportees. We don't have that kind of program. We just give them one pupusa and one Coca-Cola and say goodbye. Do whatever you want. That's the conception in that government. So, why? Because if you renounce to all that remesas, you renounce to the 24% of the internal, to the PIB. In El Salvador, in Spanish, is Producto Interno Bruto. I don't know how it's that. GDP. That. So you renounce to your economy. And Central America prefer renounce to their people before renounce to their economy, because we have very bad economies. The grow up of the economies is 1.5% every year. So if we don't have the remesas, we're going to collapse. But that's a directly message. So, which kind of people are sustaining our countries? That kind of people. That kind of people who get his arms broken with machetes. That kind of people are sustaining our countries. That's something that Central American governments never recognize. I think Central American governments have a lot of fault of what happened with their migrants. Mexico government have a lot of fault of what happened with the Central American migrants, and United States built that society, helped to build that societies in Central America and make a lot of people flee. For example, I'm going to put one example, I think a very clear example. When we signed the peace agreement in the 92, the war ended, at least in the paper. The war ended. In that year, United States, the government of the United States thought that it was a good idea to 4,000 gang members of the south of California who know how to create a gang, who know how to make advantage of a lot of orphans, boys and girls. Right now we have 60,000 members just in El Salvador. So the decision of that government helped too. But I think that we talk a lot about United States government and Mexico government, and we don't talk, I think that we don't used to talk about Central American governments. Migrants are the perfect victims. Anybody respond for that kind of people, are the invisible people. In Central America, there are the invisible people. In Mexico, they are the invisible people. In the United States, they have a very tough life called American dream. Come here for a migrant. It's an old fashion. It's a very old fashion. They don't call it anymore American dream. Come here.
I think I have a good story about that, because when at the end of the project, once we were invited to the CNN en español, to a very famous TV program, and I think it was a very important moment for the project, because when you go to the TV half an hour and talk about something, everything changed. A lot of people called us. And one of the consequences of that is that we were called by one of the departments of the Ministerio de Relaciones Exteriores, Foreign Relationships.
Foreign Relations Ministry.
Ministry.
Ministry of Foreign Relations.
Called ¿cómo es? Viceministerio de Salvadoreños en el Exterior, ¿no? Vice Ministerio.
The Vice Ministry of Salvadorians abroad.
They have a big department all about the Salvadorians outside the country. No? Then we went there and we said, okay, that's cool. The government asking us, and they asked to go to all their officials and explain everything we discovered in this project. And we say that's great, because they are interested in doing something. The sad part was that when we went there and we explained everything, they were like, what? We don't know nothing about that. And they were the department for the Salvadorians outside the country. And they say, no, we work most of the time about the thing on if the Salvadorians vote in the United States, because there was a discussion about that, and about the processes of
repatriation, deportation.
Status de los salvadoreños.
Yes.
TPS, sorry, about the TPS, okay. And we were like, you have to know about that. You are our sources, maybe, no? It was new for them. And that was, okay, some things...
But from the name, Edu, the name, we have a sub-minister for Salvadorian in the outside. O sea, tenemos un viceministerio para salvadoreños en el exterior. It's not even a minister. It's like, okay, who is in charge? Who are in charge of migrants in the outside? Okay, it's the Department of Issues Without Importance. They can call that vice minister like this. The minister that anybody see, the phantom minister. That's what's gonna see your problems of massive rapes. That the people who gonna see your problems of massive kidnaps. So no, it's not an issue, but I think that we are very used to it. But in every topic, we're very used to it. I think that one of the problems of the journalism is here, I don't know if we move somebody to do something. For example, we had, last week we had in El Salvador a great Argentinian writer who called Martín Caparrós. We invite him to talk about his latest book, who called The Hungry. You have to find the book, I think that is in English. El Hambre is a great investigation, like for 10 years he was investigating the hungry, but not la hambruna. I don't know how to translate hambruna in English. Hambruna.
Hunger.
The hunger, but the hunger is like the special situation. The hunger is the normal situation of 80,000 million people in the world. But that's normal. We assume that people can live under that condition. It's normal. The world assumed that. It's 80,000 million people is not a little group, it's a big group, but it's normal. It's the same thing. 500,000 migrants crossing Mexico, 500,000 of people crossing Mexico under that situation, that's normal. Anybody reacts like from that like a big issue. Anybody say, hey, there's a lot of women raped in Mexico. The people talk about the kids who fled. That's a crisis. A lot of women raped in the south of Mexico is not a crisis. It's the normal thing. 60,000 kids coming to the United States without not accompanied, that's a crisis. So sometimes I think if what we do is useful, because I think that the logic, I know that it's gonna sound grandiloquent, but the logic of the world is very difficult to explain that kind of thing, because it's like a collapse. I don't know how to explain it.
So I have more questions, but maybe this is a good time to open the floor for any questions that you may have.
I'm wondering, you talked a little bit about how migrants are seeing the American dream. I'm wondering, well, yeah, I guess it's my question, like how are migrants, how did they explain to you how this was worth it? Like, is it what you expected, the same narrative of the American dream, like I'm coming, or did you find something else?
Well, I think for us, when we made the project, we discovered something, that there's a lack of information in the people, because all these people, in the pictures and all the people we traveled with, they have family. They had family in the United States, and this family was like saying, okay, come with me. And this family suffered the same kind of situations, but usually they don't explain what happened. It's not usual that a woman that was raped in La Rosera called her, I don't know, daughter and say, come, but I was raped during the journey. No? And I think this kind of misinformation is correct. That maintains a little this idea that, okay, it's not an easy journey, but it's okay. And he's very good there. And a lot of people in El Salvador or in Honduras, they hear about the problems of the difficulties of the journey, but they see a house in front of their house, and now they have a big house, the neighbors, because they have a relative in the States. No? It maybe it's not the American dream, but they still see that, and they don't hear the truth about the journey. And I think that keeps the motivation, or that keeps the American dream idea.
Yeah, and it's like if you have to suffer, it's part of the process. I mean, some people accept that they have to suffer in the process, and it's normal. But I'm going to compliment one thing that sometimes when I start to talk, I talk to myself. But why can we expect with that kind of work? Okay, sometimes we want to modify some public politics, but that's very difficult. I mean, with one book, modify what people from the government or the people that make politic things is very topic. But I think that you can change personal politics of some people who read the book. And when I finish the book, I have one lesson. I mean, I don't think that I do what that people do for my family. I think that I don't able to do it, that I don't have the courage to do it. I think that I say, okay, kids, I'm sorry, you're gonna live in this country and you're gonna maybe have hungry all your life, but I'm gonna travel across Mexico as a migrant. It's too difficult, it's too dangerous. So when I see a migrant who cross Mexico, I don't feel empathy or lastima. I don't know how to say lastima in English.
Sadness.
Or sadness or pity. I feel respect. I feel respect because they do things that people don't used to do normally. And I think that deserves a treatment. And because that's our book that is not talking about our society, it's talking about your society too. That these people are undocumented, mostly of these people, but these people are here. These people are here around you. We're not talking about a guy from a weird country that you're never gonna see. We're talking about people who live here and gonna continue coming here. They're gonna continue crossing the border and living here without permission of anybody. But they're gonna continue doing it in the next years. Maybe sometimes in 20 or 30 years, the situation gonna be better in Central America. I don't know, but not right now. It's not gonna be a short. That's not gonna happen in the next 5 years. That's not gonna happen in the next 10 years. So, I think that there's that book have to see at the end with a personal decision. I mean, these people gonna continue coming here. You know what happened with some of these people. You have to decide how you're gonna behave with these kind of people. You're gonna be around you. I think that some things have to be simple.
Yeah, so it seems like a lot of what you want to do is to make sure that people know more about what this journey is really like and the dangers. But do you think that, let's say in El Salvador, in Guatemala, in Honduras, if people knew, they had a more realistic picture of what this journey could be like, do you think that that would change the minds of the people who are deciding to come? I mean, it might be varied, the answers, but what do you think?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. No, really, I don't know. I think that
There was an initiative when we were doing the first, ¿cómo se llama? Gira.
The first tour.
The first tour of presentations of the book. There was an NGO in Honduras that decided to make a map like with all this information. They decided to put it on a map, like if you go, then you need to know where the shelters are or how long the journey is, because a lot of people in Ixtepec, 500 kilometers from the border, they think that they have to be in Mexico, and they have to travel 3,000 more kilometers. Yeah? And well, this NGO decided to put everything on a map and give to the people who's going to go to the States. And for me, it was great. Maybe somebody could say that it's illegal or is, ¿cómo se llama? Incitar a la migración ilegal.
To kind of incite immigration or promote immigration.
Yeah. But then I thought maybe that is our work is, vale la pena.
It's worth it.
This is a way that our work is worth it, because maybe they don't change their mind to do the journey, but now they have more information. And in this journey, information could be the theme, the line between life and death. Because when you don't know who are these guys coming there, or when you don't know who's the police and who's the police working with, maybe you can be dead in 5 minutes.
But I think that the goal too is to change the mind of the population. For example, what Simon Hirsch did decades ago when he published The Massacre of My Lai in a little, very, very small newspaper called the San Francisco Post-Dispatch. He published a story about American soldier killing old guys who was taking a breakfast in a little village called My Lai. What that changed? That changed that simple vision about it was good Americans fighting with very bad Chinese guys. And that's the kind of explanation that people want to eat with bread all the morning. The simple explanations. The simple things. Hey, bad migrants trying to get in and take our jobs, not your jobs, but another jobs in United States. I mean, that's the simple explanation. And it's not, it's more complex. It's people who flee from that situation, that create that complex way, and cross that country with all that issues of organized crime, and come here to do that and to live that way, that kind of problems. So I think that explain the situations with all the intermediate grays and not just black and white, it's important because of that, because at the end, if you compose a powerful message, you can change some minds. You can make the problem a little bit more complex. You can explain something. I mean, we try to change things, but we are like football players, like lose all the time. But we play. We still play, and we're gonna continue playing. I mean, Martin Caparrós in his book have a great sentence who say, "Fail again, fail better." And that's the only way that we know to try to give comprehension about that society, because something that happened on the road is that it was like an assumption that if a migrant was good, a good Central American who traveled with his tools of work on his farm, then it's a bad thing that Los Zetas kidnapped him. But if a migrant used to be a gang member, then Los Zetas can do with him whatever they want. So even when we try to talk about victims, we like talk about black and white. We love that. We love the small explanations. We used to accept the small explanation. And on the migration issue, there's no small explanation. There's a huge story of violence. There's a huge story of exclusion. There's a huge story of inequality that transformed that terrible road on a possibility.
How, if at all, can this be made better in the situation? I mean, I know that's a really complicated question. Because in talking about this with some of my friends, it's a question. They're like, "Well, what would you do to fix it? How can this be better?" But as you just said, it's a very multifaceted story that's very complicated. Do you think there's anything, whether it's in Central America or in Mexico or in the United States, that could fundamentally begin to shift the situation, make it any safer, bring the number of occurrences of violence down? Is there anything, or do you think that due to the violent situation in Central America, the impunity in Mexico, and the archaic immigration laws in the United States, that it's just doesn't seem feasible right now?
First of all, it's very difficult. I think that, but yes, I have some ideas. I think that, for example, Guatemala showed us 2 years ago that the solution can come from the society. I mean, the political class in Central America, it's over. They don't understand the problem. They never went to a neighborhood controlled by gangs. They never spoke with a gang member. Never. I mean, we worked since January of 2011, worked with us in a project of making coverage of violence just in the 3 north countries of Central America. And I can assure you that the political class not understand the violence problem. They don't understand what is a clica of the MS-13, for example. They don't understand why the 18th Street separated two gangs. So they don't understand, and if you don't understand something, you can resolve something. It's like if I try to resolve a brain problem right now. I mean, and I have to open your head. I know how to open your head, but not how to fix a brain. So I think that the only politician that we need in Central America is a very, I don't know how to say, acorralado o cercado.
A corner.
A very corner politician with a little space to move. And that space have to be the society. So we have to say roots. For example, in Guatemala, they put the last president on a trial. They put the last vice president on a trial. They put a lot of people of the cabinet on a trial. So I think that, but you have another problem in a very violent society is how you're gonna construct a powerful society. That's difficult. So when I, for example, spoke on the White House or when I spoke on the Senate here, I said that please create a society in Central America. That's necessary to create a society, to give to the society an experience of success, because we don't have experience of success in Central America. So I think that's, I know that it's a big thing, but I think that the solution have to come of that part of the society, not of the official part. But second of all, I think that the United States have to start to think different. For example, why you cannot create a reunification visa? It's a normal decision. A reunification visa, a visa that allows you to come for a period of time and to share your time between Central America here. There's another solution. They try that we think that there's no solutions, that you have to deport or not deport. And it's not true. They created TPS a lot of years ago. I think that is not the best solution. The people who live under the TPS have to pay all years tax. But there's another possibilities. They talk just about two possibilities, but there's no just two possibilities.
I think that's a very good point. If you think, okay, how to solve that? You have to eliminate violence and poverty in Central America. You have to make all these narcos in Mexico disappear and to ¿cómo se llama? Derrumbar. Break down the wall in the States. When you think that, you say, okay, it's impossible, I'm going home. No? I think there's a lot of people interested in this kind of answer, because then you think, no, the wall is this way. No, everything is going to be like this for the next 20 years. But if you start to think about these simple things, smart things, and sometimes good solutions for everybody, like that. No? Or for example, in Mexico, if you start to think, okay, we have a problem with all these people crossing illegally, but we have a humanitarian crisis. Maybe it's more important prevent the death of a lot of people than to prevent all these people to cross to the United States. And then you decide to protect the migrants, not to pursue the migrant. And something that happened once in Mexico, and you start to put police escolta policial,
Escort.
police escort near the trains. Just these kind of little things. Or for example, they put these shelters, all these shelters, and they are doing a great job for the last 10 years. And sometimes they don't have tortillas, or they don't have food, or they don't have coffee. Okay, maybe just go to these guys and say, you're doing this amazing work for 10 years, what do you need? No? Alejandro Solalinde was in El Salvador like 3 years ago, And he went to the Ministerio de Relaciones Exteriores to ask money for tortillas. And I think these kind of things could change a lot and are not impossible things, are not changing the world and changing inequality. There are a few things. Where to find these things? Ask to the people that knows about. Maybe ask to the people, to Alejandro Svalinde, maybe ask to Pedro Pantoja. They have a lot of things to do if you want to do something for these people.
For example, Rubén Martínez, who is not or Rubén, I'm confused between two professors of the University of Southern California and the University of Los Angeles, or UCLA. But one of that guys told me one time that when the crisis with the Central American kids started, they told me it's simple thing to not put in context, but be simple for one moment, being simple for one moment. What happened if when all that Cuban people leave Cuba in the 50s or in the 60s, you say that's a crisis? No, they put another name and they... And that was a crisis. The United States disappeared. The people die here around Miami. No, they're part of their society. What happened with that? There was more than 6,000 kids. It was more a huge migration. What happened with that? The politics decide what to do. They put names to the things, and we believe in that names. That's the problem. A crisis is a crisis because one man said it. He said that it's a crisis, it's not a crisis. It's 60,000 kids on your door who can be killed in their countries. That's a crisis. No, they have a crisis. You don't have a crisis. The kids have a crisis. You have 60,000 kids, but you put the government put names on the type of things, and journalists write about the things and call with the names that politicians put to things. Journalism reproduce that speech sometimes, but a lot of people trying to come to this country is not a crisis, it's the story of this country.
So there was a hand there, and maybe we'll have time for one more.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk about your writing process. It felt like you talked a lot about being desensitized to violence and stuff, but when I was reading it, I didn't feel that way at all. It felt very literary and like not like breaking news at all. So I was wondering how you transferred your notes into the book. Or I mean, I'm sure that's really complicated.
Okay, there's like in Spanish we call Crónica Latinoamericana, Latin American Chronicle, something like that, and it's started and its potentials, ha sido potenciada, and it's like promovida,
Yes, been
promoted by a foundation who Garcia Marquez found, and it's called Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So my generation started to write like that, like a few years ago. So what's the logic? The logic is what Tomás Eloy Martínez, a great author from Argentina who died a few years ago, said. He said, you have to make the important thing interesting. You have to try that the important things transforming interesting too, because you need that the people read it. You need that the people spend their Sunday reading that kind of stories. And you can spend a Sunday of a lot of ways, better ways maybe. So that's the idea. So we discuss a lot the materials. We try to abandon the territory and went to another place. Sometimes we abandoned the trails and we went to a abandoned beach in Oaxaca, for example. And we spent 1 week there talking about the material and saying what we have. And of course, trying to forget some things, and and writing 3 hours per day. I just can't write 3 or 4 hours per day because write, it's a very difficult position. You have the empty page and you have to decide every paragraph. It's like 100 paragraphs. They're gonna burn anybody in any time. So write, it's a very compulsive thing. No compulsive, like nervous thing. For example, when I write, I eat a lot because that excuse. I'm hungry. I need to eat. You need to create excuse to be far from this diabolic thing. So yes, what I can tell you is that sometimes we spend like a similar time writing than investigate. Because I think that, because the thing that I said about transform the important things and interesting things, but because it's an ethical decision. Because if a migrant allows you to travel with him or with her on the top of the migrant or of the train, and she told you she's terrible story, you cannot speak that on a page. You cannot throw that on a page like you're throwing garbage. You have to create a good scene. You have to translate that to the readers. You have to make your best effort because she give you she's story and she asked for your voice. And that have ethical consequences. Fail on the black page, it's fail to a lot of people. It's a failure for a lot of people, not just your fail. It's the fail of a story, it's the fail of a denounce, it's the fail of information, it's the fail of the right to the people to know and understand. That's my answer.
And the same, could Edu talk a little bit also about his process and for photography and how he chooses certain images or chooses to portray specific images as well?
Yeah, I think that process is very different because actually we do almost all the work when we are there, the photographers. But I think there's another part that is when you edit the images. Because now and all the time we spend there, we go back with a lot of pictures, and then you have to decide not only which are the good pictures, but how do you make the people looking at the pictures feel? What do you want them to feel? Not do you want what they have to feel to understand. Because actually I think we as photographers, and I worked almost all my life as a photographer with journalists writing the story, and then you have to think a lot, what's my part, no? What can I offer here? For example, in El Camino, we had a problem of 500,000 people traveling every year, and I can show that in a picture. I can take a picture of 500,000. I can't say to the people, there's a huge problem. No, I can take a picture of 20, 30, 100 people. And I can show you the kidnaps, for example. If I take a picture of a kidnapping, I don't take anymore.
Yeah.
I can take anymore.
That's the last
That's
one.
my last.
Yeah.
But then you have to think, okay, what's my part of the story? And then you say, for example, I have to show, as I said before, the faces, no? Because there's a lot of people talking about numbers. And when you have a lot of numbers, these huge numbers, everybody, you start to forget, no? One migrant, a group, one of these 500,000 people is not a person, no? It's one. Then you have to see the faces, no? And then you have to see, for example, what happened when you are assaulted in a train and you lost your fingers. But at the same time you have to see what you do when you are resting in a shelter. Because if you don't show that, you don't feel that you're looking people. Because people resting is that makes you think as a public. No? Okay, this is it's an empathy process. And for example, in that process, we were 3 photographers doing this job. We have to decide 100 photographies for the book, or 100 and something from 4,000 selected photographies. It was a very hard work to do. And we talked a lot about, okay, we need the picture of the kid. I don't know if this picture actually. I think that's very important, because this is a guy who has a little kid, and he's traveling through Mexico. He's risking his life, and the kid is so important that he glued that, but it's not just glue, it's like, I don't know, empotrado, no? In his wallet.
It's a card around.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this guy, you can say, okay, you want to go to the United States because it doesn't matter, you want to have fun, or no, this guy has a very important thing behind. And it's very important for me that people understand that when they talk about, I don't know, politics or migration reform or a law. No? Okay. But my part of the job is this kind of field, this is information too. Maybe you can, it's not a number, but it's important. And I don't know, the process for me is to think a lot what are the important things to show, and then choose the good pictures. No? Not only take it.
Somebody else, please.
I was wondering whether you have done any reporting on those individuals that are reported back to El Salvador. There is a lot of discussion of whether they are actually endangered, and some of them have died after they have been deported from the U.S. Have you done any work on that?
No, I don't have specifically work about that, but we're trying to do something. In fact, another media from here are trying to do something in El Salvador, because it's like the demonstration that the system here failed when deport somebody with threats. But it's very difficult because they became infantiles in El Salvador. You can see it. They leave the airport, and for example, one good coyote in El Salvador gonna offer you 3 times for your money. So you have 3 times. They stop you in Mexico. You can try again when you go back to port to El Salvador. You have a meeting point. You go back with the coyote and you start again. So some of these people. For example, yesterday I was talking with a gang member of the MS-13 who is in Pasadena right now. He fled from his own war. He's an extortionist, he's a killer too. But he decided to leave the gang because the police, right now in El Salvador, the police are committing massacres. It's very common. In fact, the report of the Departamento de Estado, the State Department, 2 weeks ago, recognized one of that massacre that we reported last year, the massacre of San Blas. So a lot of gang members are running away from the country. And he's a normal guy here. He's not killing anybody. He understands that if you do something in the United States, something's going to happen to you. Not in El Salvador, but here his mind changed. He watched cars in a car wash in Pasadena. So I talked with him and I asked him, what happened if they deport you tomorrow? And he said, I don't know how to say rebotar. Like a basketball ball. I'm going to bounce in El Salvador and I'm going to come here again. And again and again. But I'm going to live in El Salvador. my life is end in El Salvador. I cannot live. I have the tattoos of the MS-13. I cannot live in El Salvador. So he said I'm gonna leave. So I think that's my opinion. I don't make a coverage about that. But I think that a lot of people gonna try again. A lot of people try again, in fact. A lot of people get deported and try again. Because if you take the decision, I think that you're gonna try more than once. If you make the decision, you're gonna try again. And if you live here, well, no, I cannot say that, because the last material that Edu work was here in Los Angeles around, for example, Skid Row. I don't know if you hear about Skid Row, that big concentration of homeless people in downtown. And there's a lot of migrants who live like homeless, I mean, and send remesas, but live like homeless, literally like homeless, on the street, on a mountain at the side of the Dodger Stadium, for example, under some plastic bags. So I was tempted to say that when a migrant proved the life here, a migrant see that it's possible, and gonna come back here, but I cannot say that. So migrants live like homeless here, but they think sometime that's gonna be better. Sometime that's gonna be better. And of course I don't gonna come back to El Salvador being a homeless. I have to do something here. I cross Mexico, I have to do something. It's like a jail, a mental jail. They try to do something because they cross Mexico, they leave the family, they say, your life gonna be better, I'm gonna go to the United States, they can come back and say, okay, I don't have nothing, I have nothing. Just a bad experience. That's that's a shame for a lot of people. They feel embarrassed to say that.
Well, that's all the time we have. We can be here a little longer if you have a question, but thank you all for coming, and thank you everyone else.
Thank you.